we have a program at EPA called our Brownfields grants program,
Right.
which is where we put money into former waste sites, former industrial facilities that have been abandoned to get them cleaned up and repurposed. What we have found though is that after we've cleaned up a site, the tax basis for that community goes up 27 to $98 million. We've also found that property values, home values around a former Brownfield site goes up anywhere between 5 and 15%. And we have over the last 3 years through our Brownfields program created over 160,000 jobs.
Administrator Wheeler, so great to have you on American Thought Leaders.
It's great to be on your show.
So, and we're doing the fist pump right now because we know there's coronavirus here in the US. We want to do a bit of modeling for the audience. But, there's been a bunch of, let's say criticism of the EPA. I want to give you an opportunity here to talk about some of what you view are the accomplishments of the EPA over the recent time. Especially, and one issue that's particularly close to my heart, I've been talking about this at HUD with opportunity zones, and I know you're actually active in it. Why don't we start there?
Sure. So on the opportunity zones, perfect example. President Trump's leadership on this has been incredible. He's making sure that these forgotten communities around the country are finally getting the attention that they deserve. And opportunity zones, which were created under his tax package, address not just inner cities, but also rural communities. And what we're doing, we have a program at EPA called our Brownfields grants program,
right,
which is where we put money into former waste sites, former industrial facilities that have been abandoned to get them cleaned up and repurposed. And we're trying to focus a lot of those resources in opportunity zone communities. Last year, we gave grants to about 145 communities. 108 of those were in opportunity zones.
That's remarkable. So, and what typically happens to these sites once there's I guess the cleanup's being done, and what do they get turned into?
They get repurposed into sometimes other industrial type sites, other times community centers, parks. What we have found though is that after we've cleaned up a site, the tax basis for that community goes up 27 to $98 million. We've also found that property values, home values around a former Brownfield site goes up anywhere between 5 and 15%. And we have over the last 3 years through our Brownfields program created over 160,000 jobs. And our goal, and why I want to publicize this and talk about this, is when the EPA puts a little bit of money into redeveloping a site, whether it's a city block or an old facility, I'm hopeful that the private sector will see that investment and say, if the agency, the federal government is investing in this community, maybe we should put private dollars, utilize the tax benefits of opportunity zones, and redevelop these same areas as well, and the neighboring facilities, the neighboring properties, so that we can get some fresh money, not only government money, but from the private sector to redevelop these communities.
And so aside from the opportunity zone designation, how do you decide where this brownfield money is going to go?
It's an open grant solicitation process.
Okay.
So communities around the country apply to us. We take a look. We make sure that of the contamination, that it's something that can be cleaned up, the ownership of the property, and we give the grants oftentimes to local communities, sometimes nonprofits, sometimes a new business that wants to take an old site and turn it into a new business. So we work with a lot of different organizations, people, governmental units around the country to redevelop these sites.
So, we're going to make a point of showing them on the screen now where they can actually go and look into applying for these.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also been doing work around it's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act.
Yes.
Yes, and will you briefly tell me what that is
Sure.
and how you're trying to change things here?
So this is a new program that Congress created 3 years ago. This is our third year of the program. And what we do is we provide that last little bit of financing for a water project to get it to groundbreaking status. So it has to be less than 50% of the financing, but we provide a low-cost loan that is actually below what cities or organizations would be able to borrow in the open market. We're able to leverage, for every dollar that we loan, it leverages almost $100 from private sector investments. And we're doing these projects all around the country. We funded a water reuse facility in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
We helped fund development for a wastewater infrastructure project in Baltimore, which will help get the pollutants out of the Chesapeake Bay. We funded a desalinization project in California to help us on trying to recycle and reuse water there. And the state of Indiana was very creative. What they did, sometimes it takes a small community, they don't have the resources to put together a loan package to do a large project. So they got about a dozen or between 1 and 2 dozen of their local communities, local government units to band together and apply for the WIFIA loan as one big unit under the governor's auspices. So we're trying different approaches, and this is getting some of these large water infrastructure projects that the country desperately needs off the ground, funded, and groundbreaking.
So, and how many of these are there around the country right now?
We've done
happening?
16
okay.
over the last 3 years, and last year we invited just over 30 communities to apply for the loans this year. So we're hopeful that we're double to triple the number over the next year.
So you're
year and a
basically
half.
identifying communities that you think are candidates that need
we
this.
We put out solicitations once a year, and people send us, it's basically just a letter explaining what the project is and the requirements. We review that, we weigh them, we have a scale that we use, and then depending on how much money we receive from Congress and how much money each project costs, we then go out and we invite those communities to go ahead and officially apply. And if we invite a community to officially apply, that means we believe the project is worthy, we have the funding for it. They just have to show that they have their private sector funding in order to match the federal dollars.
So, one of the areas that has been actually, criticized about the EPA is that it's also been praised, I might mention, is that, deregulatory efforts.
Yes.
Been extensive, obviously. What is your case for the deregulation?
Well, first of all, when President Trump called me and asked me to take over as administrator at the agency, he said, continue to clean up the air, continue to clean up the water, and continue to deregulate in order to help spur job growth. And we're doing both. We're doing all of it at the same time. Under President Trump's leadership, we've accomplished 51 deregulations, saving the American taxpayer $6.5 billion. At the same time, our air is cleaner than it's ever been. Our air today is 74% cleaner than it was in 1970. Water systems in 1970, over 40% of our water systems were in violation of EPA standards. Today, over 92% of our water systems are in compliance with all EPA standards every single day. The remaining ones aren't necessarily in compliance all the time. They may have a blip here or there where they exceed one of our limitations, but we work with them to get them back into compliance with the water standards. So our water, our air today, that we chart for the air pollution 6 criteria air pollutants, all 6 have gone down during President Trump's term.
Well, Administrator Wheeler, so great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.